Who has a picture that feels really lively and open and funny and happy? Is there one? That one does? Okay. So what about that to you feels open and inviting?
Well, it looks like she's in the middle of action and she's got a lot of light all around her.
Okay. So in that situation, we're looking at background light, right? So how is the background light? So when you're thinking of lighting your actors, it's not just them. You also need to pay attention to what's around them. Is that in shadow? Is that in light? And creating that white background, or the one here where the background is all lit. Right, she pops out, it helps them pop out, the characters, but it also creates a feeling of warmth that you're in a space that is welcoming. Okay? And that's, I know, is very important. So the other thing about light is light has color. So when you're looking at lighting, you also need to know the color of your lights. So if you're playing with daylight usually is a bluish color, and that's how it shows up, right? If you're playing with tungsten, oh, these are all fluorescent, but more tungsten, like which are those colors up there, they're more oranges and warm yellows, right? Some reds in them as they get warmer. As a light gets cooler, it's more blue. When it gets warmer, it's more orange. Fluorescent lights, what color are they? Do they show up? Greens, right? Exactly. Right? And then these like the halogen fluorescent ones, they have weird colors in between, like greens and magentas. So they play around those. So you need to be really careful what lights you're using and what colors you're using, and set that and work with the person who's doing camera so that you don't get weird colors that are really contrasty. And that's the other thing too, is if you're going to use any type of what we call practical globes, which are ones that look like stuff we use in the household, which are, this is considered a practical, and we call them globes, not light bulbs. So this is a practical globe. This is 95 watts. And this is, it says soft white, but it's going to be still a little orange, right? So I brought a couple of those, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we set that up. But if you do buy daylight balanced globes, which are going to be cooler, and not necessarily the same temperature as daylight, because it's all really tricky, but it'll look like it's daylight in there, and you can balance the camera if you have light coming in from your window, so it doesn't look like you have a big swatch of blue and a big like warmth of orange. You have to make sure that the socket that you put that bulb in actually is rated for that type of bulb and that type of globe, or else you will burn them, which I've done. And sometimes they burn just because it's electricity and you don't know why. It does weird things, right? So you have to, that's another piece, you have to be really clear that if you're going to be bringing in electrical components that you're not familiar with, that you actually get familiar with them beforehand before you can start fires. That's the fun of lighting. And fires start for no reason, just so you know. These are called China balls. Yeah, China balls. I'm Chinese. Call them lanterns, right? But on set we call them Chinas. And they come in all different sizes and shapes. And this is one of them. And this is something, it's a very simple way to get really beautiful soft light in any situation. You can hang them anywhere, but what you need is what we call this, which is the guts to a China ball, or the socket, right? You can go to Film Tools or somewhere like that, because what this is rated for is up to 600 watts, which means you can get the larger globes on there. A lot of the stuff you get on, like Target or IKEA even, is only going to be rated for something maybe up to 300, so they're going to be easy to burn out. So you want to get something that's rated a lot higher, so you have more options for what types of globes you actually put in there and how much light you're going to be able to use from them. Quick thing about those, always have a piece of black material with you. This is duvetine. It can be torn and shaped in all different sizes, and that you can wrap around it so you don't get spill on the background, or you can only, so you can direct the light. And oftentimes you want the person to have depth and position away from the background, so you don't want everything lit exactly the same, because that's flat lighting and that's really boring lighting. And I've been on a lot of sets where people are like, oh, well, this is a comedy, of course it's flat lighting. I'm like, yeah, but it's ugly. Just because it's comedic and funny and a comedy doesn't mean you have to have ugly lighting. So I'm just going to put that out there. So These are the other two things that you can do to create light that don't take electricity. They bounce light. This is called beadboard. It's very soft light. Notice I'm creating more light on her. This is called negative fill. If you don't have enough shadow in your shot, you can come in and create more shadow. You can't see it from here. But you can do that when you have larger sources. There's too much light coming out here. Block it. Create shadow with black. Right? And so having a piece of foam core that's white and black, really, really useful.